Okay, so welcome everyone to the first episode of this podcast. I want to thank Kevin Hook for coming on. Kevin has been a longtime mentor of mine, family friend, and we were talking about this a little bit outside the podcast. But I just wanted to say the whole goal of this podcast is to really connect with successful individuals, learn from their story for young entrepreneurs and real estate investors like myself, as well as hopefully produce some stories for some other people, no matter the age, who want to get into real estate or who want to get into business ownership. And selfishly, I want to learn from and connect with these people myself, but selflessly, I want to provide these stories for other people. And, at the end of the day, this is going to be a tax podcast. So we're going to talk about tax strategies, how that works with business, how that works with real estate investing. And so, yeah, once again, I just want to thank you, Kevin, let's just get right into it. Briefly, I just want to
Okay.
share about how me and Kevin know each other. Kevin and my dad had known each other for a long time, and I'll let him tell his story in a second. But around 2022, my dad caught the real estate bug, and then I caught it as well. And Kevin was already successful in this space. Kevin has just been a mentor for both of us, especially for me being the young guy on the scene. I really do look up to Kevin. But yeah, that's just my introduction to you. You're obviously way more than a real estate investor. You're an amazing father, husband, business owner, but I'll let you get into your story. So, how did you grow up from being a kid in Orangeburg to becoming this big, successful, real estate investor?
That's a great way to start the question off with. For me, I grew up in on a farm, and at that time, in my little small hometown, everybody had mobile homes and trailers and RVs and things of that nature. But then you would go into other towns, or you would see on TV, see people in big mansions and things of that nature, and you will always wonder, like, how did they get to where their life is so prosperous? And majority of the people that I grew up around was in poverty. And so when I transitioned from South Carolina to North Carolina, and I became a resident in the banking capital of the South, Charlotte, North Carolina, I was able to see how wealth was assimilated and how people gain wealth. And I was able to surround myself by people that was able to and were willing to share how to grow from, and I'm gonna call it, to prosperity. And so I became intrigued. I became intrigued of learning about that gap. Like, what happens in that gap? What happens in conversations and life lessons, or what's taught, what's shared? And in that gap between the poverty and the prosperity was a lot of knowledge. And I wanted to know what was those conversations about, and who was having those conversations, and how to get into those circle of people having that conversation. And once life opened up the opportunity for me to get into those circles, it became an addiction or an attraction, if that makes any sense.
That's awesome. Just hearing how when you're a young kid, you're just driving around, you're like, what makes them different? What conversations are they having? What books are they reading that they get to live in mansions and I don't get to live in a mansion? Just because you have a humble beginning doesn't mean you need to have a humble life or a humble ending. You can certainly grow
Absolutely.
your way through that, like you said, through networking. I'm sure you alluded to, just surrounding yourself with other like-minded people, and even moving to a bigger city like Charlotte, North Carolina, the banking capital of the South, as you said, and just surrounding yourself with success and having those conversations. But what was it about real estate that made it attractive to you, that you, I guess, figured was the way to fill in the gap between, a humble beginning and, material wealth and material success?
Because every time you turned on the news, it was always discussion about real estate. Real estate was a hot topic. Whether or not you're an agent, you talk about mortgage interest rates, you're talking about the increase in value, the depreciation in value. You see homes, Lowe's, you see Home Depot, you see landscaping. Like, you just see so many variables of the real estate market being advertised, talked about, or it was a object of scrutiny on the news in different countries and in different parts of America. And what became apparent to me was people are talking about it for a reason. And I became curious to know, like, what is it here that so many multi-millionaires and billionaires were all involved in the real estate game, in the real estate market. And so it makes you wonder, like, what is it about this thing publicized so much, is talked about by so many, and it's adored by the rich and the famous. I don't know if you remember the TV show Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. What they did was they always went to somebody's home. Like they didn't go to their business, they didn't go to the family's ranch. It all took place at their home, and they just glamorized their residence. And it's 30,000 square feet, and it's 21 bedrooms and stuff. And so it was the jewel of the successful people. It was the jewel that brought people together in adornment. Like, so real estate was the shiny apple in the basket of fruits. And so everybody was attracted to it. But I wasn't, because I didn't know anything about the real estate game. And so it was so talked about that it was like putting bait on a fishing hook and throwing it in the water. Like you see that bait dangling, like, wow, what's that? And so now I'm swimming to it to try to figure out, like, why is everybody coming up here to this bait that's hanging in the water? And so once I got that first bite, man, I was hooked. So hook, line, and sinker. And now here I am flapping on the bay. I'm flapping in the bucket. They done caught me, The real estate fisherman got me.
Yeah. That's a great perspective. It's like it's literally right in front of everyone's face. It's all over the news. It's all anyone talks about. Like, hey, how much did you buy your house for? What year did you buy it? And it's all anyone talks about. And I guess from the outside looking in, like one day it just clicks and you're like, oh, why am I not in this? I shouldn't be just watching it on the news or hearing about it or watching it in TV shows. I need to get into the game. So, like you
Yeah.
said, you eventually started swimming and you eventually got that first bite. So just walk me through that first bite. Like what year was it? Was this before the crash, after the crash? Just what was that first thing? Because a lot of people won't get into it because, they're just scared. But how did you overcome that? Essentially, what did it look like for you?
So my career was I was a professional lender. So I worked for financial institutions lending money for all sorts of reasons, whether it's for you need to borrow money for a card, you need a line of credit for dental work, the dog needed surgery, but you need to buy us a couch, like whatever your financial need was, I was in the industry that provided money for that purpose. And so ultimately I ended up becoming an underwriter for a mortgage company. And as a mortgage underwriter, you begin to you learn every facet of the real estate game. You learn how to appraise properties. You learn the products that's offered by Fannie and Freddie and the open market, what Wall Street is looking at. You learn interest rates. So you look at what the average interest rate is or over the market. So you learn the whole gamut of the real estate game. So, and I was underwriting these loans, man, and this is what got me. I was underwriting these loans, and I was the whole entire processing unit, meaning I went to the brokers, I sold our mortgage rate, but they sent me the application, I approved the customer, I gathered the documentation, I submitted to our underwriting review group, I pre-reviewed the documents, the appraisals, the income docs, like I did everything, and I handed off to a group of people that red stamped it for final approval and gave the clear to close on it, and then gave it back to the dealer, the broker, and the broker would tell the customer their closing date was set up. We do the closing, and then all the monies was dispersed. And so at that time, I probably made $70,000 a year. And when I looked at the good faith estimate, the closing sheet, I saw that the broker was making my salary essentially in this transaction. And I'm saying, like, in 1, 2 transactions, he's made my entire salary. And I did all the heavy lifting. Like, I did all the collection of the documents. I sold the rate, I reviewed the documentations received from the customer. I got it approved. Like, I did all of the heavy lifting. And I got 1%, and the broker shop got 99%. And I said, well, this is not right. So they're making a killing. They're eating steaks and lobster, and I'm eating oodles and noodles. And I said, I gotta be smarter than, yeah, like I gotta be smarter than him. Like, I know I'm smarter than him. Like, what he's doing, I'm doing this in the bathroom on lunch break. Like, this guy's not smarter than me. There's no way he's smarter than me. So
Yeah.
what I'm doing, this is dumb. This is dumb. This is dumb. So I said, well, since I know what the market's looking for, I know how to underwrite deals, I'm going to do my very first deal. So my very first deal, I found a mistake on the internet where a builder had placed a house on the market and he made a mistake and he listed it for $25,000 less than all of the other properties. It was a simple mistake, but I knew that because they listed it, that they had to hold to their word. And so I called my real estate agent, and she said, "You got them." So I said, "Well, hey, let's put an offer in on the house. Let's tell them we'll take it as it is." And so they gave me the house for 125, and this was in the mid 90s, late 90s. Oh, the houses were hitting the market for 160. They had it on the market for 125. So I was already in the game over $30,000 from the start. So I had a friend of mine who was looking for a place to lease, and she was apartment manager. She managed apartment complex, big apartment complex, and she needed a place to stay, and she didn't want to live on the premises. And so I leased it to her for 2 years. Now, mind you, there was an interest only option at that time. So I chose the interest only option on the finance because I knew that I already had equity built up in the property. So I rented the house for her something like $1,100. The mortgage payment interest only was I'm like $400. So right there, so you're looking at $700 profit per month on the rent. So you do 700 times 12, like that was and was new construction. And
That's
so the house,
insane.
yeah. So the houses came with they call it a 10-10-10. So you had 10-year warranty on the structure, electrical. So so there was no issues with the house that could come about that would cost me anything. So I was like, deal. And so I got the benefit of the rent profits each month. And then I had the interest at the end of the year and, the depreciation, the whole 9 yards. And so when the 2 years was up and she was ready to buy, now mind you, I'm the mortgage underwriter. So I already knew what the market looked for. And so I just coached her on the backside to make sure she had the documentations. And so when the time was up, we transferred her from a leasing tenant to ownership. And I think at that time it was like a annual appreciation of like 3% or something like that. So when I sold her the house, I sold her the house for what I figured would be the market rate, which was about 190. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. And the bug got even bigger.
That's the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
That's honestly the best way to describe it. It's like, and you hear this from a lot of people. You win when you buy, not when you sell. So
Yep.
buying the
Not when
house
you
and
sell.
having 30 some thousand in equity already put you in a great position. You were already in a great position.
Win
So
when you buy.
I'm sure from that first deal alone, you were already just hooked and just starting off with a win like that. So fast forward from
Yeah.
then to today, what does I'm sure your portfolio is more than one house. Are you willing to tell us how big your portfolio is? And if not, just what kinds of types of properties you're mainly in? That was a single family home. Are you in multifamily nowadays? Or are you more in commercial? Like, how does your portfolio look from the 90s to now?
So it's a mix. And so I was a victim of course, the '08 debacle where everybody kind of real estate took a plunge. A lot of people lost their shirts, unfortunately. Well, fortunately, I was not one that lost my shirt, but some of my properties did lose value, of course. And so I transitioned from a fast moving market to a slower market because I took what I learned in the fast market and I said, it's got to come to the slow market. And so I went to the slow market to be ahead of the curve. And so I built up, listen, I I think I was somewhere between about 21 pieces of property and it kept rising. And I'll share this with you. I had gotten to a point where I had fostered relationships where people were calling me to give me their homes. Like I was getting homes for free. And so it essentially cost me about $325 to transfer properties from the previous owner to me. So I would tell them, hey, listen, I'm going to cover all of the the closing costs, just for you deeding the property to me. So I was up to about 21 pieces of properties, and so I had commercial buildings, garages. I had standalone commercial buildings that were once hair salons. Um, so currently, right now, what I have left in my working inventory is I have probably about a little over $3 million worth of real estate properties, which includes single family residence, multi units, and a few commercial properties, and right about 150 acres of land. Which the glory thing about it is that they're all free and clear with no mortgages, which sets you up for uh, the possibilities later in life.
That's an amazing story, and I'm sure your days as an underwriter, your days as a lender, you just had so many relationships that you fostered. And then throughout the years, the more and more you're into real estate, I'm sure by 2008, you were at least a decade into, buying up properties left and right. So when you just have people coming to you and literally giving you stuff away for free, I'm sure that was amazing. And,
Man,
it's
it's
awesome to
unbelievable.
be on the yeah, no, it's awesome to be on the good side of the 2008 crash. You always hear these horror stories, but then there's people who just wait on the sidelines and wait at the right time. Cash is king, as they say, and just snatch up property.
Mhm.
So that's
Yep.
awesome for you. S- having that many properties, first of all, congrats on having them free and clear. Having that many properties, how do you manage it? How do you manage them day to day? What does your team look like? What are the essential players on your day to day team?
So this is probably somebody's going to probably say this is weird, but it worked for me when it worked for me. One thing about people is there are three types of people in this real estate game. You either got brute, you either have bucks, or you have brains. And so if you brute, then you have the skill. If you have the bucks, you got the money and the capital to make it happen. Or if you have the brains, then you have the whole knowledge of it. And so a lot of times there are a lot of people that are seeking to get into the industry, but they don't have all three components, or they're one of the three components. And so what I did is I ran into individuals that was interested in getting into the market. And I made a promise to them and the promise was, I will invest in you, but you're going to have to invest in me. And in investing in me, you're going to have to believe in the process that I have written, that I have developed. And if you believe in that, into the system, it will reward you. And so I put together a makeshift team of individuals that did plumbing, that did electrical, that did construction. And so my very first commitment to them was, I gave them a house and I gave them a commercial building. Said, here, this is my commitment to you. And if you value my commitment, that we should never separate in business. But the minute that we separate, remember, all bets are off. There is no more gimmies, and everything that you want from me, the relationships that I have, you're going to have to establish your own relationships. And so I put together a makeshift believer of people who did not have, with people well in positions of power. And when I grew and I profited and I expanded, they grew, profit, and expanded. And so it's never a one-man team. You have to do this collectively as a team or as a unit of individuals. And one of the most powerful statements that I say or that I preach is that I would rather have 1% of a billion than have 100% of a million. And so if you just have 1% of a bigger piece of the pie, you will have more than trying to own everything by yourself. And so with my tenants, I put them in a position whereas that they've never been in before. So when I built the house or rehabbed the house, I would tell them, this is a brand new home. You're the very, very first person that lived in this home. And if anything goes wrong in this house, something that you have done, not necessarily me. If it's constructural problem or electrical problem, I got that covered. But everything else in this house is brand new. So however the condition of the house is while you're in it, you created it. And I'm gonna put this rent moderate for you so you don't have to struggle to make the payment each month. But most importantly, I'm gonna do this. In the event that you want to leave, I have a list right here of 25 people that want to move into your property. So the pressure is on you. You can either default and let the next person get in, because by the time you tell me that you cannot afford to pay it anymore, somebody's going to be at the door with their car to move in. So I don't want you to default. The person that's standing behind you in line wants you to default. And I don't know where else you're going to move to give you a brand new house that the first person lived in it that with this cheap rent. Because for me, I was trying to avoid what's called the vacancy factor. Because if you put the rent too high, yes, you made a whole lot of money, but those 2-3 months out of the year where they default, you're going to lose income. They're not probably going to catch back up. And then you have to go back into the house and renovate it to get it back up to a good standing condition that the previous person left it in. And so if my theory was, I want to make it comfortable for them where they want to live in there for the rest of their lives. Whereas, and if something should happen to them in life, that their children's going to move into that home and continue renting. Because I found out in that market that I chose is that people don't like to move and people want stability. And so if you created a place of stability and affordability, they're going to be loyal to you for life. But most importantly, I also encourage or provide an opportunity for them to make additional income. So if I have a gentleman that cut grass, why not let him cut the grass for you for the other properties? Essentially, the expense is going to be the same. You're either going to pay Mr. John across the town the $45 to cut, or you could pay the $45 to the tenant. It's the same thing. What happens is it's additional income for the tenant, and what he's not going to do, what she's not going to do is she's not going to mess up that additional income. So it creates a sense of loyalty, and in their heart, they're going to want to say, I don't want to default and lose out on my blessings because I'm making additional income and I'm living in a brand new renovated home and I got a nice place to stay. So the tenant buys in. And so now instead of me making outbound phone calls saying, hey, Miss Keisha, where is your rent? They beat my phone line up saying, hey, Mr. Kevin, what time you coming here to pick up this rent? It's like it's the 5th and you ain't been here yet. And I'll be like, hey, just hold on to it. I'll be there on Friday. Listen, when I don't show up to get that rent payment, they panic. So it works for that market
That's
area.
amazing.
So, yeah, it works.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Going back to the original question, then it sounds like, what kind of team do you have? It sounds like if you treat your tenants with respect and like family and give them opportunities, turns out you don't really need a fancy property manager who takes 10% of your rent. You can just rely on your tenants to beg you to pay their rent, so I'm sure that lowers your overhead
Correct.
costs, not having someone else go collect rent for you, not having someone else go fix the toilet for you, kind of making a family out of your tenants just, makes your
Correct.
operation much smoother. So, I mean, that's an amazing piece of advice for anyone listening who's, trying to get into the game. Just be a
Absolutely.
decent human being.
Be a
But
decent human being.
I guess, it sounds like you've had a lot of major successes, but what's one big mistake that you can tell us that's, taught you a valuable lesson?
Let's see, the mistake. Trying to do it all alone. In the beginning, I tried to do all things by myself. And I realized that if you continue and you try to do all the things by yourself, that what happens is you burn yourself out. And so you have to have a team. And then having a team takes the load off one person and it distributes it to others. And so once you distribute the weight, the stress levels are lower. So you do a couple of things. One is you educate your team members, because if you educate them on what to do, when you need for them to act on your behalf, they know what to do. So the biggest mistake I did in the beginning was I tried to do everything by myself. And I realized that, it is because what I was thinking was if anybody understood my strategy, if I told my strategy to anybody, then I will create my own competition in the marketplace. And so I didn't tell anybody. I kind of moved in silence. And that moving in silence, at some point in time, people are going to pick up on it and they're going to understand what you're doing, and they're not going to understand why, but they're just going to know that you're doing. And so the biggest mistake I would say that I did in the beginning was trying to do it all alone, making all the decisions.
Yeah,
That was my biggest mistake.
I was gonna say, that I'm sure I'm gonna misquote this, but I think there's a quote that says, "If you want to go, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together."
going
You can
together.
definitely try to do a sprint and you'll get a couple properties by yourself. But if you want to get into the big boy numbers or even the big girl numbers, just to be equal over here, you really do need to surround yourself with a team and not be scared to, share your knowledge, share your wealth because someone else might help you out.
Exactly.
But let's get into the boring stuff. Let's get into the boring stuff. At the end of the day, this is a tax podcast. So, what's one tax strategy that you've learned along the way that's made a meaningful impact on your real estate investing business?
Get an accountant. Get a good accountant. Do not get your cousin that took the online courses. Like, don't get a preparer.
That did tax accounting 101. Yeah,
Exactly. Get a bona fide certified accounting, especially when you start dealing with in the real estate industry, because the the tax laws favorable to the knowledgeable, and it would definitely save you in the long run. What you don't want to do is you don't want to get down into the owing the IRS or getting on their call you list. Get you a good tax accountant that understands the real estate game, than the profit and loss of the uses of capital gains, transferring of assets from capital gains or funds from capital gains, that has some real estate knowledge in what you're doing. And so I would say when you start your real estate journey and you choose your accountant, make sure that they have knowledge of real estate. It is the savior of investors. It's the savior for investors. It is.
that's amazing advice. You hear a lot of people say, "Hey, like my aunt does the bookkeeping or my cousin does my taxes, and that's all right with me." And certainly, you don't want to owe the IRS a lot of, or certainly you don't want them knocking on your door because you owe too much. But you also don't want to be the dummy that pays them all your profits. So you have to find the accountant in between that can help you kind of find that sweet spot. And so, with that many properties shifting from tax to bookkeeping, how do you keep track of how each property is doing, how much revenue is coming in, what are the expenses going out, and just kind of keeping like a property on property basis of, which one's doing well and which one do we need to focus on? How do you do the bookkeeping?
So what happened was the young lady that the young lady that was started doing my taxes, I interviewed her in 1996. I interviewed her. And I interviewed her because I did not understand. Like, I'm fresh out of college. I didn't understand filing taxes and anything of that nature. And so she understood the taxes for where I was in my life. Ultimately, she became the owner of a mortgage broker company. And so she went from a mortgage broker company to becoming a real estate agent. And so what she was doing was she was taking her tax customers and she was converting them over into buyers because she had already had their financials. And so it was a great relationship for her. And so I said, well, that means you understand the investors' income from the real estate perspective. And she said, yes, I do. And so I said, well, when I start getting into the real estate, I'm going to need you. And so it was a perfect transition from the individual that knew me coming straight out of college and working my job as security officer now to a professional in the banking industry, and then ultimately a professional, I guess you would call me a professional in the real estate game. And so she understood how my money transitioned. And so she created me a spreadsheet and she said, hey, you're just as smart as I am. I'm going to create a document for you, and you can either pay me to do it or you can do it yourself. And so when I had just 3, 4 houses, every time I had rent, I would just use the spreadsheet that she created for me, and I would plug in the numbers, sink, grass, lawn care, yada, yada, yada. And it would give me a P&L at the end of each month. And so I knew what unit was costing me money and which unit was making me money. And so it became a bigger spreadsheet. And then ultimately I said, wait a minute, I ain't got time to keep doing this. Like, Like, I don't want to keep doing this. Like this. So what I did was I sent the spreadsheet back to her and be like, hey, you take this thing. I'm out here making deals. I ain't got time to be in here being an administrator of my own company. And so she laughed. And so now what happens is every expense that I have, we have a program that I send it to her directly, and she piles it into the spreadsheet. And so when it comes time for taxes at the end of the year, she always already have all of my documentation already in the spreadsheet. So it's just a plug and play for her at that point in time. That no matter what type of program you have, that is essential to success, because you're not going to remember every 2x4 that you purchased, every, with cash. Like, you're not, if you keep receipts in your pocket, those receipts are going to fade if you don't get them to the proper place in the next 2-3 days. And they'll send you sitting there looking at the receipt saying, like, I think that says $900. I'm not sure. And so because it has faded. And so, but if you have something, you can take a picture of it digitally right when you administer or you get the receipt, and load it into a program, and have it a lot electronically filed, or you have someone that's managing that for you. It makes it a whole lot easier. And so I had to find easier ways to be proficient. I can't spend my time with my pen and paper doing +1, carry this 5. Like that's time consuming in an industry that's fast moving and fast paced, and where people want answers, people need instructions. Like, you can't be like, hold on, I'm sitting up and count how many 2x4s I need. Like, no, you lose deals being slow to reply on
Yeah.
deals or with possible deals. So you have to work efficiently and have an efficient.
Once again, it goes back to what you were saying, how you need to have a team together. If you are best served being the deal man, being, having the personality and the eye and the ears and the brain to, go out there and make deals, you shouldn't be the one doing the bookkeeping as well, nor are you best served to be the one doing the bookkeeping or even the taxes. So once again, it just goes back to how you need a team. So yeah, that's, a couple awesome nuggets there for anyone who's listening. So
Right.
I guess I'm gonna now go into a
And I,
couple of
I
rapid
would say,
fire questions for you. Um,
I
oh
want to
yeah, go
say
ahead.
this. So your decision to become the CPA for your family is how you build generational wealth. It's a part of the wealth building model, because you got to remember it. You're going to need that CPA. Like, I don't care what happens. If you're going to be in business, you're going to need somebody that monitors the books. And so when I heard that you made the decision to become the CPA, I'm like, genius. That's how you keep the money in the family. Like, keep the money in the house. If you're making $1 million, but out of that $1 million, you got to pay out 200,000 to the accounting, that's not putting back into the family or back into the wealth model. Like, that's really a loss. But if you're making $1 million and you pay $200,000, and the CPA is a part of the family or part of the network, you're keeping the money in the household. And so what really happens is, a lot of people who build businesses, they don't have family members, or they don't have close related individuals that believe in the process, that will say, hey, my commitment to this is I'm going to go learn how to do this component of it. Like, I'm going to be I'm going to learn how to become a GC, so we can keep the GC fee that we normally pay for real estate in the household. Or I'm going to learn to be a plumber. I'm going to learn to be an electrician. Or I'm going to learn to be, do drywall. Like, you don't have to have the financials to be a part of it. You can have the knowledge, and the knowledge is just as important as the finances part of it. Or you could have the brute, which means that I have the flexibility to run and go pick up the truckload of lumber, or I have time to go pick up the appliances, or I have time to go run and grab the siding. Like, all that plays a part in keeping expenses for a business down, because you kept it in the household. And so becoming a CPA, at and a good one that you become, is detrimental, and it's like a king's move. Like, if you want to say, how do you make a king move? That's a king move.
Even if you don't have a family member who is a CPA, just being connected with one, and especially being connected with one who's business minded and who is a real estate investor himself or herself, like I am, even that would help out, because it's one thing to be an accountant who knows the numbers, but it's another to be an accountant who has skin in the game themselves and, is actually
Absolutely.
practicing what they preach. But yeah, let's go into some rapid fire questions. So what is your favorite business or real estate or even just success book?
Eric Tyson's Real Estate for Dummies. It comes in the easy reader and it comes in the audio, because essentially we all start out knowing.
It can't get much simpler than that.
Yeah, it can't get much simpler than that. And so I've always enjoyed a good book for dummies, because it breaks down the X's and O's, and it explains it on a level that the most common person can understand, and can understand and can relate to. So it's like the step by step, like 1 + 1 will give you 2, but you got to have the one. It's a it was a good start for me to kind of understand the X's and O, because once you get
I
in,
might have to go read that one.
yeah, like, dude, if you get into a book and they start talking about, 1031 exchange, and they start talking about like quality zones, or you'll get lost in like, what in the world are they talking about? And so opportunity zones, I'm sorry. So you start you start that high, dude, you're gonna get lost. Let's just take it from, you know, one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish. Let's just start at the basics
I
and
love
build
it.
from there. Yeah, so Eric Tyson's the Real
Well,
Estate for Dummies.
well,
You won't start off any worse.
cash flow or appreciation?
Who would say that depends on where you are in your investment journey. That depends on where you are in your finances. If you're just starting out, cash flow is important. And the reason why is because you need to put it out there for it to come back to you, so you continually keep growing. Because once you run out of capital, you're set. What you have is what you have. When you're talking about appreciation, appreciation is the long-term investment gain. It's kind of like when guys now, they may buy a portrait, and the portrait may be $1,000 today, but in time that one of one gains value, and now it's 10 years from now it's worth $25,000. And so it's the same portrait that you purchased then, it just has more value now. Same thing with, like, even in the wine industry, man. You may buy a bottle of wine today. That bottle may be $20, but it catches momentum because the market starts to demand for it, and now that one bottle now is worth $10,000. So appreciation is a long term game. If you got enough money to sustain you monthly, and you're just looking for the big payout, then appreciation. But if you want to keep building, you got to have cash flow. So I'm 50-50 right now in my lifetime. Right now in my life, I'm in the middle. But when I first started, it was cash
Non-answer.
flow.
I hear you. Yeah. What is the biggest real estate myth you've heard?
Biggest real estate myth that is only for rich people. It's only for rich people. It's for the wealthy, and it's not. It's for everyone. It's just a matter of how you get into the game. You can get in the game by being brute, or you can get into the game by being bucks. And so, remember I said brute brains are bucks. And so the myth that is for the wealthy, and truly is how the wealthy maintains their wealth. Real estate does.
That's
It's a great
awesome.
question.
What is your next big goal?
You know what? I want to own real estate in foreign countries. That's what I want. I want to own
Wow.
real estate
And
in
is there anyone in particular?
Armenia. I want to own I want to own real estate in Armenia. I was blessed and fortunate enough to visit there, and I enjoyed every second, not every minute, every second that was there. And I saw so much of opportunity, and I had a chance to be among great people. And so I would love to own some real estate property there. Everybody wants to own real estate in Dubai. Like, nah, my thing is I want to open the mindset of people to other countries and other places. And if you provide them an opportunity to visit there, and for them to feel safe visiting there, and to know that you've been there then you can gain more people to follow. Well, but yes, I would love to own real estate in some foreign countries outside of America, just in case I want to leave this country one day and I'm out of here. Y'all, here's your American credentials. I'm out. I'm tired of the rat race.
That's an amazing goal. That could be a good personal goal as well as, you never know what appreciation looks like, especially with such a booming country. The regulations are
Right.
really starting to open up in Armenia. So yeah, that could be an awesome play for you. But
Absolutely.
yeah, I guess one final question I have
Yeah.
is, what is one piece of advice that someone gave you that maybe you want to pass along to the next person on their journey?
One piece of advice: be intentional. Be intentional in what you're trying to do and what you want to do. Do the deal. Like, I have a guy that I follow, Grant Cardone, and Grant Cardone. Matter of fact, I was invited to a seminar and I couldn't make it because the invite came too late. He was in Miami 2 weeks ago, and I got the invite that night, and I had to catch a flight early that next morning to go to Miami to the event, and I just couldn't get the stars to line up. But he always say that you got to do the deal. Like, if you're going to do it scared, because believe it or not, if you get invested in real estate, somebody's going to buy it from you. Now, you may not get the money that you asked for, but you may get a break even. And even if you break even, you got another chance. But the thing is that you wouldn't have that chance or the opportunity if you didn't get into the deal. Like, you can't just sit back on the sideline and just talk about, is what I call the I'm a conversation. Or I'm gonna do it one day, or I'm gonna wait till the market is right, or I'm gonna wait till I get, just a few more dollars, or I'm gonna just wait until I get married. I'm a. Meanwhile, while you're hitting with the amas, there's somebody that's getting the deal. And so be intentional. If this is what you want to do it. And the reason why is because people are attracted to doers. Not many people hang around with people who talk about being. Like,
100%.
there are doers, and then there's beers, and beers are just they be thinking about it, or they be wondering, or they be asking a bunch of questions, or they be pondering. No, doers are out there doing. And so people are attracted to doers. You may Beers hold your attention for just a little while until people realize that those beers are not doing. And so my advice to you is, if you're going to do it, just do it. Period. You'll figure this out. People will
Go
come and
all in.
help you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
go on that. People will help you when you're invested in the opportunity, when you're involved. If you're sitting on the sideline, no one offers you assistance when you're standing on the sideline. To give you a better perspective, they throw life jackets to people that's in the water drowning. They don't throw life jackets to people that's standing on the beach. Like, you got to get in the water and swim and see if you can make it to the other shore. If you don't, somebody's going to throw you a life raft or throw you a life jacket. So you got to get in the water. You got to just do it, period.
That's amazing. Where can people, follow along your journey, connect with you? What are some places people can find you?
Catch me on the mountaintop. No, I'm a simple guy, man. I'm still building, and all the things that I do. Being a husband is one of those duties that just takes you away from things. But I'm on social media, man. You can look me up on Facebook. I'm Kevin Hook. You go on there, you'll see me doing a plethora of things. I have my wine identity, and then I have, which is Ella Wines, and then I have my thought processing, which I call the Hookisms. And so that's on TikTok. And so if you see me out there, you'll see me in different forms and fashions. You'll see me in different mindsets. You'll see me in different life roles. And it's because I try to have a little connections with a variety of people on all social media platforms. But if you want to catch me, hit me up on Facebook. That's the easiest way to catch me, because I haven't constantly stay on that one for the benefit of family notifications and my real estate people. They send me messages and send me pictures on that platform. So it's Kevin Hook on Facebook. But on the other social media platforms, I'm a variety of other names, from Ella Wines to Hookism, and Hookism being my last name. is for the thought process. So that's how you'll find me. And one thing I would tell you is I reply back. And so if you ask me a question, I personally reply. I haven't gotten so big where I have a team of people that monitors my social media and reply back. So if you get a message back from me, it's from me. Now, if you say I owe you money, then that's not me. That's your
Kevin Hook,
company.
everybody.
I thank you, man.
Thank you so much for your time today, Kevin. And if you're a business owner out there, if you're a real estate investor looking for a CPA who's actively in the game, actively has skin in the game on both the business side and the real estate side, we're currently accepting new clients. But yeah, Kevin Hook, everybody, thank you.
I appreciate you.